In a small town in Poland, a boy named Adam Poznanski vanishes and is later found dead as part of a supposed satanic ritual. 2 years later, prosecutor Leopold Bilski arrives to start work at his new post. While going through the most relevant files in the area, his attention lands on Adam's case, a matter that caught his eye from the very start. Driven by curiosity, he seeks out Commander Adam Zick for details. The officer shuts him down, arguing the matter is closed and there is no reason to reopen it, given the boy was supposedly found alive. Such an explanation fails to convince the prosecutor. When he inspects his office files, he notices there is not a single document on the topic, as if someone had taken care to erasing all evidence of the process. Determined to clear up the facts, he shows up at Irina Poznanski's house. The woman, clearly shaken, insists her son was found some time ago and now lives with other relatives. Despite her efforts to appear calm, her attitude only serves to heighten the investigators' doubts. Meanwhile, Julia Sarman and her son Patrush move to the area seeking a fresh start. The next day, the writer runs into Leopold while both spend time with their kids. The calm breaks when she bumps into Eric Filippia, an old-school acquaintance who tries to intimidate her. Upset by the encounter, the woman leaves in a hurry. At the same time, Fabiola Borchardt, Julia's mother and the town's mayor, gives a public speech. Right in the middle of the ceremony, disaster strikes. Patrush vanishes without a trace. Investigators' eyes immediately turn to Eric as the prime suspect. Agents follow multiple lines of action, one of which leads to the young man's father, who once directed the church choir where Adam used to sing. However, the interrogation yields no valuable data. That night, consumed by anguish, Julia goes to her mother's home, hoping to find some clue, but the search proves fruitless. At dawn, a massive tracking operation is deployed throughout the region. In the midst of distress, Mika Pakosh, an old school friend, reappears, offering her support and taking the chance to confess he has always been in love with her. She, however, does not return such feelings. Later, she decides to follow him in secret, but all she witnesses is an extremely awkward scene. Michael maintains an intimate relationship with her own mother. Morning brings a macabre discovery. Agents find a body reduced almost to a skeleton. They immediately notify Julia, though they clarify the remains belong to someone who died quite some time ago. That same day, the writer confesses a traumatic childhood memory. She and her sister sang in the choir and witnessed a boy suffering abuse. When they tried to report it, no one paid attention. From that episode, she can only recall the victim. Her attacker's identity remains blurred in her mind. Meanwhile, Leopold goes through a moment of panic when he loses sight of his own daughter. After finding her unharmed, he chooses to send her to live with her mother until the case is resolved, convinced the threat in the region is much bigger than it seems. Upon examining the new evidence, the prosecutors start suspecting the bones found belonged to Adam. Commander Adam Zick rejects the idea, insisting the boy was found alive some time ago. Despite the opposition, Leopold demands a DNA test to certify the deceased's identity. Agents also notice the corpse was positioned in a chilling way. The head was severed and placed between the lower limbs, a detail suggesting a sinister ritual. The next day, the prosecutor summons Eric's father again upon learning of his link to an act of desecration at the cemetery. The man argues he only went to the site to guard it after hearing graves were being violated. Minutes later, genetic results arrive. Leopold and an agent show up at Irina's place to confirm the bones are indeed her son's. Cornered by the evidence, the woman admits that some time ago, Commander Adam himself suggested giving the boy up to adoption. However, the officer now flatly denies having given such advice. For the prosecutor, this is not a mere inconsistency, but clear evidence of a cover-up. Driven to find the truth, he visits the parish priest and asks about rumors of abuse in the choir. The clergyman outright denies the accusations, swearing nothing of the sort happened in God's house. Later, Leopold presses Julia to try harder to recall more details from her childhood. Convinced someone has been covering up crimes for years, she makes an effort to reconstruct her memories and finally manages to identify the boy who was victimized. It was the commander's son. This finding directs the investigation toward a new target. All arrows point to Marek Chalky, a businessman who funded the church choir.
When searching his home, agents find a USB drive hidden among his belongings. Inside are pictures of Adam. Marek swears he does not know who took them and suspects they belong to his father, but the material is even more disturbing. There are also photos linked to Commander Adam Jink and numerous similar cases occurring over the years. The investigation starts pointing to a deceased subject, Old Chonaki, Marek's father. Everything suggests he headed an abuse and murder ring that operated for decades. Moreover, the evidence shows Commander Adam Jink collaborated to cover up the crimes, filing away complaints and altering investigations. When the priest examines the photos, he identifies several boys who were part of the choir. With this data, Leopold goes to Fabola Boscher to question her about an old case tied to Julia's sister. He also chooses to confront Julia herself, but she shows reluctance to dig into that past. In the end, she confesses her sister took her own life when she was only 10, a blow that forever scarred her family. To move forward, authorities summon various individuals who worked with Old Chonaki over the years. One by one, they are interrogated, hoping to uncover who was behind Patricia's disappearance or the crimes hidden for so long in the region. Despite this, none seem to have solid data on the boys' whereabouts. In the middle of the statements, one of the men admits he suffered abuse in his childhood. He recounts the organist used to ask him to arrange religious prints and run errands for him. As he remembers, everything changed when the man left the temple and opened his own restaurant. Though his testimony yields no definitive proof, it sets off alarms among investigators. The next day, a criminal profiler joins the team to study the behavior of the main suspects and help detect lies or psychological patterns linked to the crimes. Meanwhile, Julia decides to go to the church. There, she watches the choir rehearse under the baton of the organist, who turns out to be the same restaurant owner mentioned in the interrogations. Seeing him, she starts suspecting he has something to do with her son's disappearance. Driven by desperation, she follows him home, hoping to find some clue, convinced Patrice might be held captive there. However, when the organist arrives, he catches her, restrains her before she can escape, and drags her to a secret room hidden behind a false door. Julia fears finding her boy locked up, but the room is completely empty. All that fills the place are dozens of religious prints and photos covering the walls. For his part, Leopold remains obsessed with one loose end. Among the photos on Marek's drive was a picture of a girl whose identity remains a mystery. Convinced that image is the key piece to solving the puzzle, he decides to dig deeper. At the same time, a very tense conversation unfolds at Eric's house. For years, the young man carried resentment toward his father for allowing him to be abused as a child. Unable to keep quiet any longer, he confronts him face to face. His father, defeated by guilt, admits he knew part of what was happening. He explains Old Chonaki helped them with money in hard times, and thanks to that, they got by. Despite this, Eric completely rejects such an excuse. Just then, Leopold arrives to ask about the mysterious girl in the photos. The young man's father recognizes the girl and details that she worked at one of Old Chonaki's properties. He also mentions several men linked to him frequently visited the place. With this information, the prosecutor orders an investigation of all employees tied to the property. While reviewing the evidence again, an idea starts taking shape in his head. Since his arrival in town, the same figure had been close to the case. Suddenly, he recalls the girl in the photo. Her name was Basia. Then, all the pieces start falling into place. Leopold understands Basia knew the truth about Patricia's disappearance, and possibly also about Adam's death.
However, before she could reveal what she knew, she chose to take her own life, taking much of the secret to her grave. Following the last available lead, agents head to a man named Nicky's house. When searching the property, they find no incriminating evidence. Everything suggests they arrived too late or are chasing a false lead. However, shortly after, they receive a tip that Nicky has been spotted in a wooded area on the outskirts of town. Authorities mobilize immediately and manage to arrest him. After days of anguish, the boy is finally rescued. rescued and reunited with his mother. Once in custody, Nicky decides to confess. He clarifies he never killed Adam. According to his version, he did kidnap him, but the boy jumped from the moving vehicle. To avoid scandal, Commander Adam Jick decided to cover up what happened. Nicky received orders to hide the corpse and erase any trace linked to the boy's death. The investigation finally reaches its end. Leopold then understands something he had suspected from the start. For years, the town had recorded surprisingly few serious crimes, not because such crimes did not occur, but because someone had taken care of hiding them systematically. That someone was Commander Adam Jick himself, the same man who had collaborated with old Chojaki, manipulated investigations, hidden evidence, and shielded the guilty for decades. Now he would have to answer for all his acts before justice. That night, after the case is officially closed, Leopold visits Julia. He does not need to say a single word, thus closing the story of Colors of Evil Red.